So good afternoon. Myself, Dr. Manikandan, Associate Professor in Computer Science and Technology, Madanapalle Institute of Technology, Madanapalle Institute of Technology and Science. Today, we're going to discuss about the object-oriented programming concepts. So, what are the objective at the end of this lecture? We'll come to know what is the basic difference between a functional programming and object-oriented programming, and what are the basic terminology we are using in object-oriented programming, and how important the object-oriented programming in current scenario. And we're going to discuss about what are the basic principles or the concepts of object-oriented programming. Finally, what are the programming language supporting object-oriented programming concepts. So while seeing this picture, it is very clear that the structure oriented programming what we used in conventional, it's not conventional, still we are using. So if there is any programming language we are exploring, if there is some other programming language already we know, so there is some advantages in the new programming languages, like the structured programming we already used, like C, Pascal, Fortran. The structure of the programming is that the program is divided into many modules, that means we call it as a function. One function will invoke another function to establish communications. uh, so function and program is divided into modules. Every module has its own data and function, which can be called by other modules. So on the other hand, if you see the object-oriented programming, so the objects will communicate with the one with another. So if you look at this diagram, the object one, object two, object three objects are there. So each object is having its own data and functions, right? So one object will communicate with another object by invoking a function in another object, like sending a arguments and receiving the return values. Like that, the communication will be established. So if you consider these two diagrams, that means the conventional object-oriented procedure-oriented programming and the modern object-oriented programming. So what is the difference? Means the basic building blocks of uh, procedure oriented programming is functions, that means a procedure. If we come to the object oriented programming, means the everything in the form of objects. So what is this difference? How it will be helpful means, so there are two three advantages we are having, like in procedure oriented programming, like we can't able to say the data security, and it is very difficult to represent the real time objects. Whereas in object oriented programming, these two are very easy, like we can able to represent each and every object very easily, as well as the the objects of the same class can have the same data and methods. Objects send and receive the message to invoke the actions. So what is the key idea means, in object oriented programming, the real world can be accurately described as a collection of objects that interacts. So now we explore what are the basic terminology we are using in object-oriented programming, right? The first one, object. A object is nothing but usually a person or a place or the thing, or that is a noun, right? For example, here I am speaking here in front of me. A projector is there. A projector is a one object. So a camera is another object. A mic is another object. Then method. A method is nothing but a action performed by a object, a verb. Then attribute, a description of a object in a class. Then the class, a category of similar object, does not hold any value of the object attributes. I'll explain. Like if you take any object, real-time object, it is having two things. The one is characteristics of an object, and the another one, what are the actions that particular object will do. For example, if I take a object like a student have a characteristics like it will be described by a data, like what is the roll number of a student, what is the CGPA of a student, whether that the student is a day scholar or hostler. These are describing about his characteristics by the data. Okay, this is what we call it as an attribute here. And the what are the action is performing by that particular object. For example, student means a student can able to read, write, a student can play, or he may have some extracurricular activity. It will all comes in an action part. So if you take any object, the object is having two things. The one is the characteristics, that in programming language you call it as an attribute. The second one is a What is class? A class, by writing a class, we are enclosing both this method and attribute inside a class. So it is just a template. That means, like in C programming language, while you are writing int x, means it will start to allocate a memory. Compiler will allocate a memory for an x, for 2 bytes. If integer is occupying 2 bytes, means it will allocate a memory of 2 bytes, right? But while you writing a class, it is a template, a memory will not be allocated. So while you creating an object for the class, the actual memory will be created. That's why we are calling a class is a template, and it is telling how the object will be defined. So that we are saying it is a class is a category or a group of similar objects. That means each object whichever you are instanting from a particular class will be having a similar memory space. Right. For example, you take a car, right? So student example just before I told. So here slide you can see, you take an example of attributes and method. So in a car, what are the attributes? That means the characteristics. That means what are the data? Means maybe the manufacturer name, the model name, the year in which the car was made, the color, the number of doors, size of engine. Not limited to this. We can say many characteristics for a car. If you look at the methods, we can able to write a method. It will return what is the specific manufacturer name, model, year, etc. Like that, we can able to write a method or change a data item. So we can able to construct a method. If we give some color, that color may be changed for that car, right? And displaying the data items. So another two, whatever we can write as a method, like displaying the data item, calculate the cost, calculate the mileage. So this you can write n number of methods in a class. So the class is nothing but which encloses two things. One is attributes and the methods. Those methods only can able to change the attributes which is written in the same class. It means if you ask in a particular program, we can able to write a n number of classes. Means yes, we can able to write an n number of classes. So next, why object-oriented programming? Okay, so object-oriented programming save lot of time for us and the cost by reusing the code. Once an object class is created, it can be used in another application. So like uh, many MNC company, they are developing a day to day. They are developing many applications. Maybe the code is similar for many applications. For example, uh, take a login page. Okay, that means there the user wants to give the credentials, the username and password they have to give, right? So if you see, every application is having a login page. Okay, so we no need to write the same code again and again. Write a code once and use it wherever you want. Okay, the object oriented programming is provide such facility. Once we write a code, means we can use it at anytime, so that it is saving our time and cost. Okay, and second thing, debugging is very easy. That means it can be tested independently, and once the object is created, that object can be reused. Maybe that object is already tested. Okay, so it saves our time and cost. Next, um, object oriented. If you, frankly speaking, structure oriented programming or object oriented programming have much advantages over the structure oriented programming. Example, in the terms of security, in terms of writing application with a less number of codes, code reusability, everything, right? So, what are the four design principles, or we can say it is a main concepts of object-oriented programming? Means encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance. Let's see one by one. So, what is encapsulation? So, encapsulation, we are saying it is a data hiding. Just before I told you, a class is containing both attributes and method. Those method only can able to modify the attributes in that particular class, right? So the encapsulation, it is nothing but, so we are wrapping both the data and a method which going to act on the particular data. We call it as encapsulation. That means we are wrapping up both data and the method together, right? So only that method only can able to access that particular data. So we can take an analogy. A ATM machine can only update accounts of one person or that particular object only. Right? So here we are hiding our data. That means nobody can able to misuse that. So next, abstraction. So abstraction, it's focused only on the important facts about the problem at the hand to design, produce, and describe so that it can be easily used without knowing the details of how it works. So example or analogy you can take, when you drive a car, you don't have to know how the gasoline and air are mixed and ignited. Instead, you know only the details how to use the controls. So take another analogy. While we driving the car, we know about only the ABC pedal, accelerator, brake, and clutch. Like if you press the middle pedal, the car will stops. But if we don't know how the hydraulic is working. So this is abstraction. That means whatever the while you writing a programming, whatever the details need to be shown to the end user, those details only shown. Others are abstracted. Right? This is abstraction. Second principle. And third one, if we see polymorphism, okay, polymorphism, it is a Greek word. If you see, poly means many, morphism means forms. It is nothing but a same word or phrase or even a operator can mean different things in different context. Example, you take a arithmetic plus operator can act in different place in differently based on the context. Suppose if you give a two input, that means operand for a arithmetic plus like two numbers, it going to do a addition operation. Suppose if you are giving a two words for the same plus operator, arithmetic plus, it going to concatenate the two words, that means it is concatenating the two word. The same plus operator, that means arithmetic plus operator, behaving differently in different contexts based on the operator which you are providing. Okay, you taken in English as an analogy, a bank can mean a side of a river or a place to put money. Right? So the well good example for polymorphism is it's a function overloading. So function overloading in procedure oriented language, this feature will not be available. In object oriented programming, most of the language, this function overloading is available. That means we can able to write a same function name many times, but the prototype is different. If you look at this example, here we return three methods. The name of the method is same. If you look at the first one, it is taking no arguments at all. The first one is taking one argument, that is low, and second one it is taking one argument, it is 150. It means both the second and third is taking one argument. The data type is different. For second argument you are passing a string, and third function you are passing a you are passing a integer. So the name of a function is same, but the compiler will choose a particular function based on the number of argument you are passing and what is the type of the argument you are passing. Right? So next and final uh, principle is inheritance, right? So this is very helpful for us who wants to write with a less number of code and write once, use many times. That is inheritance. It is like it is a way of organizing the class. So we can able to write a program in a well structured manner by organizing the classes, right? This term comes from the inheritance of traits like a high color, air color, and so on. A class with property in common can be grouped so that their common properties are only defined only once. It means we can say in two perspective. Like so, if you're in a particular program, you are writing hundreds of classes, right? There in 20 or 30 classes, you would like to write the same coding again and again. Means no need to write again and again. Combined, just to bring that codes which you're going to write many times and put it in a particular class. Okay, so here in object-oriented programming we call it as it is an abstract class. So write those code which you want to repeat many times. You encapsulate all those particular statements into a particular class. That class can be inherited to any number of subclasses. That means the coding repetition will be avoided. We are writing code once and we are using it a mini class. So the superclass, here we are having the term superclass, subclass. A superclass is it inherits its attribute and method to the subclass. That means the superclass will provide the attributes and method to the subclass. Through inheritance, the subclass can able to inherit the data from the superclass. So if you have any queries for object-oriented programming concepts, you can post it in this form which I given. So the reply will be given as soon as possible. Thank you.